All right. The participant joining count has started to slow down, so I'm going to welcome you more formally. Hello and welcome. Thank you for your interest in today's topic. Collegetown Court connects with the public online. My name is Dunry Greiling, and I'm on the Matterhorn product team here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Matterhorn platform powers online adjudication, online plea negotiation, online ticket resolution, online dispute resolution in 60 courts nationwide. Today we'll hear from the team at the 54B District Court in East Lansing, Michigan. I will introduce our speakers and then give you a quick overview of the timing and webinar participant controls. Then we'll launch into our great content. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their perspective and their time today. We'll hear from Chief Judge Andrea Larkin. You may hear on this webinar that she received her education and law degree from Notre Dame. She began her practice in commercial litigation and practiced in Michigan and Arizona. She was elected to her position as judge in 2012. She initiated online adjudication of certain infractions at the 54B District Court. She's joined by Nicole Evans, Court Administrator. Do you want to say hi, Nicole? There, she's waving. Wonderful.
Hello. Welcome.
Yes, it's great to have you. Prior to becoming the Court Administrator, she served in the court in several roles, including Deputy Court Administrator, City Clerk, and Chief Probation Officer. Judge Larkin and Nicole Evans are joined by two members of their team. Robert Stump, Senior Clerk. Hello, Judge. Welcome.
Hello. Hello. Fresh from the bench. How is it?
Thank you. I've given your bio. I let them know your collegiate affiliation, so that everyone's
Go clear. Irish. Thank you.
They're joined by Nicole Evans and Judge Larkin are joined by two members of their team. Robert Stump, Senior Clerk, Traffic. He's been with the court for over 18 years and has been involved with online adjudication since the beginning in 2015. Also, Sarah Cheesebro, Senior Clerk, has been with the court for 8 years and supported the process at the court since 2016. Judge Larkin will speak with us for the first half of our session today, and Nicole, Robert, and Sarah will elaborate on how it works for their entire team, as well as their outcomes in the second half. Before we begin, I want to orient you to today's logistics and the Zoom software. The webinar is being recorded, and the materials will be made available to you for your reference. You'll receive an email with links to the materials, and you can always come to our website to download them. All attendees can submit questions via the Q&A widget, which should be on your screen in the little black Zoom bar. We wholeheartedly encourage you to ask questions. We'll try to answer some along the way, and we'll leave time for the judge to answer and for the team to answer. All right, let's get started. Since we have people from all around the country joining us on today's event, not everyone will be familiar with Michigan and the location of East Lansing. So we'll start by asking Judge Larkin to share with us a little about where the court is situated. Over to you, Judge.
Good afternoon to everyone. Good morning to those of you in a different time zone. We here in East Lansing are located in a town that is dominated by the state's largest university. It was one of the motivating factors for beginning online dispute resolution. Michigan State University, which borders the southern edge of our town, has a 50,000 student enrollment, and there are only about 29,000 full-time residents in the city of East Lansing. So we see a lot of people who are comfortable with technology, all of whom are walking around at almost all times with their handheld devices, who are comfortable with computers, etc. And that was one of the motivating reasons for us to adopt this new program.
So here are a little bit of statistical information to help other folks understand what the court's work is. So if you could share this.
Sure. We have, you've probably noticed down there in the middle, our parking. We're an old city that was developed the university here is over 150 years old, and so a lot of the city was laid out with narrow streets and homes with no garages or a garage for a single car. And often these houses are lived in by 5 or 6 students, each one of whom brings a car. So you'll see that we have 35,462 parking citations that were issued last year. Many of those are students who are trying to park somewhere to go to class, either in the city or on the campus. And then you can see our other civil infractions, 2,084 misdemeanors, which is down pretty significantly from 7 or 8 years ago. We've decriminalized the use of marijuana. We've decriminalized, the legislature has, not us as a court, decriminalized minor in possession of alcohol. And so the number of civil or misdemeanors, criminal misdemeanors, has gone down. We do still have a pretty hefty number of drunk driving charges. Those are not resolvable in any way online, other than maybe down the road if there's a non-payment issue, but I don't think we allow those for non-payment. So we have more bars per capita than, or per mile, I'm sorry, than any other city in the state. So there are a lot of misdemeanors that involve non-fingerprintable charges, such as assaultive behavior and small things like urinating in public, that type of thing, which can be resolved now online through our online dispute resolution.
Thank you for that overview. So just so that we get a common definition, I'm curious if you're willing to share a definition of online dispute resolution.
Sure. I'm the mother of 3 kids in their 20s, and I'm a resident of a town with 50,000 students, and 66% of our population in East Lansing is between the ages of 18 and 24. And it occurred to me shortly after receiving an email from the very early developers of Court Innovations that people in that age range are very comfortable doing things online, not just resolving legal issues, but really almost everything in their life, from banking to buying their music to paying bills to depositing checks, etc. I've often joked that I don't think my kids even know how to write a check, but the digital space is a place where young people, millennials, and Generation Z are very, very comfortable. And so this online dispute resolution is one option for them. They do not have to use it. If they insist on their day in court, they can have that either without choosing online resolution. They never have to use online resolution. It's completely voluntary. Or if they use the online resolution tool and decide that they're not satisfied with the judge's finding, they can still ask for an informal hearing. But I don't remember our statistics. They're around 98% of people are just conclude with the online dispute resolution. And this is a way for officers to remain on the road doing the core job of being a police or parking enforcement officer. That is enforcing the ordinances of the city. And it's a way for not only students who are here in East Lansing that have gotten a ticket, but also parents who have come to visit, fans of Michigan, alumni who have just come in for a football game who might live in California or Oregon or Florida, to contest their ticket without having to take the time to drive to a courthouse and sit in front of a judge. Judge Ball and I like to think, and we committed when we first started this process, that we will use the exact same standards in deciding these cases. We just do it in the online space or in the online format. And we like to think that we treat them the same way that we would if they were both sitting in front of us, both officer and accused.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that gets at the next question. Next slide we had too, which is why the court got started with ODR. I think you shared a lot of your thinking behind that. I don't know if there's anything you want to add or.
I did, just as a college town, so many people here temporarily, parents moving their kids into their dorms, visiting for games, people from all over the country who are fans of MSU, people from all over the state coming in. And that's part of the reason. The other reason, as I shared earlier, was just the age demographic in East Lansing. These young people are so comfortable. 2 of my 3 children don't even own television sets. They watch all of their TV on their laptop computers. So I just think we're moving toward that all of the time. I just heard on the news the other day that one of the countries in Northern Europe has abolished cash. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if it was Norway or Sweden, something like that. Sweden. So yeah, so it's all going mobile, all going electronic, and I think that was one of our motivating factors, was just seeing how comfortable young people are with that format.
I know we're going to talk with Nicole and the full team a little bit about who was involved and how it came about. I don't know if there's any comments you want to add here.
Just that when we started, we thought it very important to have the police buy in. To have the parking and code enforcement officers buy in. We have 2 police departments that we work with here in East Lansing, Michigan State University's police department, as well as the City of East Lansing Police Department. And Nicole can get into more of the details on that, but they were both willing and enthusiastic partners. It's a win-win-win. The defendant doesn't have to take the time to come to the courtroom. The police officers can be out doing their core mission, and as a judge, we can resolve these much more quickly online than we can by calling each case up individually.
So I think Nicole and team will also talk about this, but I'm curious which offenses you decided to allow to be handled online.
We started out with just driving misdemeanors, traffic cases, and that worked really well. Speeding, running a stop sign, running a red light, your typical traffic tickets. And after we saw how well that went, and because, as you saw on that earlier slide, we have like 7,000 civil infractions that involve driving, but 35,000 that involve parking. It didn't take us long to decide that parking was going to be a real benefit to add as well. So we added the parking unit. After that was done and we saw how comfortable the students and young people were using online resolution, I can't remember whose idea it originally was, but we decided to allow people who are somewhat fearful of coming into a courthouse when they have a warrant outstanding, and it could be a warrant for failing to pay fines and costs from a 5-year-old parking ticket when they were a student and they moved to Texas for their great new job, and then they find out that there's a warrant back in Michigan because they failed to pay something. So now, instead of having the fear of coming into the courthouse, the expense of coming into the courthouse, we also decided to add online warrant resolution. So you can see on this slide the progression. It was less than 6 months between just having traffic to adding warrant resolution. And then about 6 months later, we added parking citations. And now we have just transitioned into online misdemeanor pleas for many of the same reasons. Those are available. There are some misdemeanors that we just simply won't allow to be resolved online. Those where a victim is involved, those that involve drunk driving, those that involve incidents that are going to be abstracted to somebody's permanent criminal record. But for people who come in for a football game, they get drunk, they urinate in public, which is a misdemeanor here. Some other 90-day misdemeanor. They go back home after having come here to visit for the game. They just want to get it over with. They know that they committed the misdemeanor. They are entitled, Judge Ball and I would not put someone in jail for those types of crimes. Certainly always to their day in court. They are entitled to plead not guilty, to hire a lawyer to go through the pretrial process. But if they want to have it resolved online by a guilty plea and a fines and costs sentence, they can do that. Judge Ball and I also do not, we have the discretion not to entertain an online misdemeanor plea if we believe that we think that the person needs to be sanctioned more harshly than just fines and costs. For example, we want to supervise them on probation. We think that whatever offense they committed deserves some short jail sentence, even though it's a 90-day misdemeanor. So both parties are able to use it as just an option. And we just started that.
Yeah, thank you for that summary. Want to go next slide? Yeah, so curious what you've experienced in terms of, did you get the efficiencies or that you expected when you started to bring these cases online?
I think here at 54B, we not only got the efficiencies we expected, but I think it was more time saving than we expected. The actual in-court informal hearings have been reduced dramatically. We had so many at one point that we even adapted, and we still have a night court, but our night court used to meet 2 nights per month. Now there are many months where we just have 1 or 0. Our weekday informal hearing docket has gone down considerably because just so many people are choosing to use the online dispute resolution. It is helpful for people who have difficulties taking time off of work. It's helpful for people who are from out of town or out of state. I was telling Donry a couple days ago, judges do not have to do this, but I find it convenient to do these off hours. I can do them at 3 o'clock in the morning if I've got a bout of insomnia. I can do them sitting in a doctor's waiting room or an airport lounge. You can resolve these to the judge's convenience anytime and anywhere they want. You don't have to. My colleague only chooses to do his during the actual hours that the court is open. And then the efficiencies for the officers, I think, are also tremendous. I think the East Lansing Police Department, the East Lansing Parking and Code Enforcement people would tell you that the ability to have officers out on the roads other than standing in the hallways of the courthouse waiting for their case to be called has been an incredible advantage for them. And now we're coming to the end of your section. I know you have the next stop in your day, but I want to give you an opportunity to provide your advice to anyone considering making this sort of process available in their court. Well, one thing I would say is that it's an easy process to implement because the software and the program has been refined over at least the time that we've used it. I give a big shout out to Sarah and Robert sitting here behind me. As we began with online dispute resolution, there were areas where we found that we needed court innovations to tweak their interface. And for example, we added templates. There are certain violations in the city of East Lansing that come off so frequently. It was really easy to have a template. For an example of that is it's unlawful to park here in the city between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. And everyone, not everyone, the overwhelming majority of people who come in to dispute that ticket say there were no signs where I parked that said I couldn't park there. Well, the state has passed a statute saying that the cities who prohibit overnight parking only need to put the signs at the major entrances to the cities. And so I just developed a template that said the signs are in compliance with the law. They're at the major entrances pursuant to state statute. I gave that state statute. That way, when someone presented with that explanation, I could just hit the template. And Court Innovations was great about working with us to tweak all sorts of things. It gave us a space where I could ask for input from the parking and code enforcement officers if I had a question. Those actually don't go to the officers directly, but rather through Sarah. And I think now that all of those initial kinks have been worked out, now that it's been refined as much as it has, that it's an easy thing to implement. I would always advise pulling in all the stakeholders, the local police officers and police chief, your court clerks, certainly, who are going to have to work with it, the administration, and you know, depending on the demographic of your town and the docket and congestion, I think that it's been an invaluable tool here at 54B.
That's great to hear. Thank you. We do have one question, and I encourage everyone to open up that Q&A widget and drop your questions in. The first question we have is, were there any adjustments to statutes needed to be made to start ODR?
No, there weren't. And one of the reasons is because we made it clear, we have it located on our website, that this is a completely voluntary option, and that anybody who was displeased with their ODR resolution could still ask for their day in court. So this deprives nobody of any due process rights or right to confront the officer who issued the citation, and no adjustments to fines and costs. People don't get charged more or less, for that matter, for doing this. So no changes to any applicable laws at all.
We have a question on how this process works. I think Nicole and team will get into that a little bit in a moment. Are there other questions from the audience? I think we often hear what types of feedback you've gotten from the public, and we do have a little bit of that at the end of our presentation. But I'm curious for the judge what kind of feedback you've heard from partner agencies, police agencies, or from the members of the public on this topic.
So I have had members of the public who have told me, even friends who have had parking tickets in East Lansing have told me that they resolve them online. And I have not gotten any negative feedback about it. I think in the years since we've been doing the online dispute resolution, I have only had it's less than a handful, less than 5 certainly, people come into court for an informal hearing that said, I tried to resolve this online, you ruled against me, this is what I want you to know. Generally, it's the same thing they told me online. Finding, I don't think has changed very often, but they still were not dissatisfied with the process. They were dissatisfied with the fact that I ruled against them and wanted their day in court, and they got it. But I have heard, I have heard personally, no negative feedback about online dispute resolution.
And it looks like you've got your whole team there, or many members of your team there in the room, and they're here willing to share their stories. So hopefully they have positive things to say.
They're all ready for you.
Well, I know you have to get back to the bench, so we really appreciate you taking time. You're of course welcome to stay as long as you can.
I appreciate that, but I am actually headed back into the courtroom for informal hearings. 10 of them. I'd probably have 50 if it weren't for court innovations. I'm heading in to do 10 of them starting right now. So thanks to everybody. Thanks, Dunry, for all your hard work. I'm going to have somebody move up to this chair so it doesn't look so empty in here.
Thank you so much, Judge Larkin.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you, Judge.
So we'll let the team shift around a little bit. At this point, our court administrator, Nicole Evans, is going to lead us through talking about the high-level process to answer Kim's question of how exactly does this work? And she's flanked by members of her team, Robert and Sarah. Yeah, Sarah's completely hiding off screen.
Yeah, no, sir. But I'll back up.
Perfect. That's helpful. Yeah, now we can see everybody. Thank you.
I can see myself.
All
You
right.
can see yourself? Mm-hmm. As much
So
as
Nicole, yeah, thank you so much. Now gets to the meat of it. How does this actually work? And we'll start here with the first screen of the court's website.
Okay, so are you asking me the actual workflow process? Because we can go through that pretty easily, especially with Bob and Sarah here. In fact, I can have them go through their processes individually so that the participants can understand how we handle these violations using an online platform, but in a different aspect, in a different way.
Yeah, I think we were thinking we'd start with the public flow first, and then there's a slide with the workflow, and let's bring Bob and Sarah in at that point.
Okay,
So,
all right. So the slide that you're looking at is actually a snapshot of our actual website, and I'm going to give my shout out to Sarah for coming up with the idea to have it mimic a smartphone. And this is because the majority, our demographic, as the judge has said, the population is majority students. We are a college town, and so we recognize that, not just students, but pretty much everyone now has a cell phone tethered to them, and they do quite a bit of their business on the cell phone. And so why not have our website mimic something that they are very familiar with in their day-to-day interactions with the technology. So from the public perspective, when they come onto our website, they're looking, that third button to the right, it says resolve tickets and warrants online. And once you click on that button, you'll see another screen that actually shows all of the options available for our online platform. So you'll have, is this what you wanted? Sorry, did I skip ahead?
no, I think it was my fault. I think you knew exactly where you were going.
Okay, yep. So these are the options that are available for our online platforms. You see the online misdemeanor, you'll see traffic and civil infractions, which is what Bob primarily handles. The warrant, which is handled by our misdemeanor division, and then parking, which is handled primarily by Sarah. So when the public first enters into the module, they select the platform that they're looking for based on the type of citation that they received. And so going through, I'll start with traffic. Once they get into traffic, they're entering their name and their driver's license number, I believe. And that does, and date of birth. Okay, and that pulls up any citations that are eligible in our case management system. So the online platform, or in this case, we work with the Matterhorn platform, it pulls the information from what is called the judicial data warehouse. So it's not tying directly into our case management system. The online platform does not talk directly to our system. And so there's an intermediary where that information is picked up. The participant or the user finds the result, or they are able to obtain the result, and they can select, if they have more than one citation, which one they want to have resolved. and there is a list of, I guess, affirmation statements, that we require, that they understand that they are going through an online process, and that the information that they're giving is true. I can actually see the wording there. But as Judge Larkin has said before, at no time do they lose their ability to appear in court if they decide that they don't want to go through this process, or if they if they complete the process and they don't like the decision. They never lose that ability, but it does give them another option to resolve their matter in a much shorter period of time.
So this is where you were going, and I'm sorry I took you off at first. Would you like to talk about what happens once the citizen submits their request?
Okay, I'm actually going to have Bob, because this is with traffic and parking, he can speak more intelligently regarding what actually happens when an eligible case enters into the queue that is set up by the online platform.
Every morning when I come in, I sign on and I'll look at our segment, our queue, because there's one for warrants, one for criminal, one for traffic, and there's one for parking. I'll look at the traffic one. It'll list if there's any outstanding requests in there. I will pull it up, open it up, and then I will go to our case management system, update our case, because I put our case on hold, because I'm not sure how long it will take from start to end, and I don't want any notices generating on our side. So I put our case on hold, updating it that online review has been submitted. I'll go back to court innovations. I will update that, and I will submit it to the officer. And when it's submitted to the officer, I can view from step to step how long it's taking or where it's at if that's processed, and so can the defendant. And then I will, throughout the day, maybe 4 or 5 times, I'll go online and see if there's any more that have came in throughout the day, so I can update them and submit the same process. Once it goes from the officer, if he agrees to it or denies it or makes his motion to deny it, it will go to the judge's queue. Then we'll wait for the judge to make their recommendation. Once the judge makes their recommendation, it will go to the defendant saying, are you sure you still agree to this requirements that'll be amended to what we amend to impeding traffic? If the defendant agrees, they will send their text back. It will come back to our queue saying accepted. Once I see it's accepted, I will update our case to impeding traffic and give them 2 days to pay, because that's what our recommendation is. And then I will send email and text back to the defendant. You've been approved. You need to pay this within 48 hours. And they can do that all online because it gives our website. If they don't pay within 48 hours, or if it should come to the 48-hour point, Court Innovations will send another reminder to them, you must pay or else their original charge will be reinstated. It's really nice because they keep track of the time frame. I don't have to do anything regarding that. And I'd say 99% of the defendants pay on time.
So one thing I would like to add to Robert's summation is that for our traffic module, when we, it's the police department that decides what offenses become eligible. They also determine what plea they will offer. And so we have a standard offer of impeding traffic, which Robert referenced. And so there really is no guesswork on the on behalf of the police or for the judges for that matter. If the police department or the liaison finds that the person's request is eligible, then the offer is automatically the impeding traffic. That's also one of the statements that's made at the beginning of the process, that if your plea is eligible, if your explanation is accepted, then the offer is impeding traffic, and this is the amount. So before they even go much further into the process, they already know ahead of time that if there is what the plea agreement would be if accepted and the amount that's owed, and that it's expected to be paid within 48 hours. And so they have that information up front. So again, at that time, the entire process is totally voluntary. So they can decide at that time whether or not they want to continue, or if they just want to if they want to have their day in court and request an in-person informal hearing.
No, that's helpful context. We have one question, if I can interrupt you to ask it, or we have a couple questions. One, do you have a sense of the proportion of defendants that are using ODR to resolve of the eligible tickets that could be resolved online? How many of them are coming online to resolve their ticket?
Gosh, well.
And if you don't have that answer, we can give that answer afterwards via email to the question.
Sounds like a teaser. Okay, well, we can get the answer after. I'll just quantify it by saying many.
Okay, all right.
Yes, the online platform is very popular. And not just with our court, but given the demographic, we can see why it would be used so often, because we have the university population, but we also have, adults, with real jobs and, responsibilities that need to continue with their day, and are grateful to have the opportunity to not have to interrupt their day, not take time off of work to be able to address their matter and have it resolved in a short period of time.
We have another question.
Okay.
About the number of people that were on the project team at the court. Maybe this question is maybe to launch, and then maybe there's a second question with how many staff members are supporting it now.
Okay. Well, let's see.
And
numbers count on my fingers how many. I was part of the initial administration team when this was implemented back in 2015, along with my predecessor. We also had representation from the police department, and I believe it was the police chief, the deputy chief, and a lieutenant. So I believe we had three at the time. And we started with traffic. And so it would have been the three police officers. Obviously the chief, because they're making the ultimate decision, and the deputy chief is there for support. And the lieutenant, I believe, we were looking at a process that involved a liaison, as opposed to having every officer respond or make a recommendation to their own ticket. The point is to keep officers on the road, and not to have them sitting in office and having to respond to a request for review. So I would say that's what, 2, 5, that's 5.
Both judges.
Were both judges there?
Yes, they were.
5, 7. So we had both judges.
Myself.
And Bob.
Yeah.
That was about the 8. That's it. Yeah. So it's about 8. Yeah. Okay. So it's 8 people. It's, a pretty big team, but, we were making a big decision, and we all needed to be at the table at the same time to address, the vendor, the provider of the platform. The provider of the platform. They did a demonstration. They did a demonstration for us prior to us meeting with the police department, as well as a demonstration to the overall group, and able to address, any concerns, especially logistics, because, police had a valid concern as far as time commitment. So yeah, that would be 10, including the vendor, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And one more, if I can keep interrupting you.
Sure.
And this may be for Bob, or this may be for you, I'm not sure. I'll let you guys decide. What happens if the motorist does not pay within 48 hours? Is the reduced plea still given to the motorist?
Okay.
No. I will receive notification back from Court Innovations. They have not paid. I will reinstate the original charge, and then I'll send a text back to them, which short template basically, that the original charge has been reinstated. You must pay, or you contact the court, I believe, and you can challenge the hearing in court, or challenge the charge in court.
Okay, thank you. We have a
So
couple.
although
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So although that plea agreement is offered, it is for a specific period of time. And the nice thing is that through using the online platform, it tracks this for us. And through every step of this process, the user is receiving an update. So each time it moves through the queue, after Bob updates the case on our case management system, when it goes to police, that user is getting an update saying that move to police review. And so they know exactly where their citation is in the process. There's no wondering what's happening with the ticket, because they're constantly notified throughout the process. And that's very nice, because being on this end of it, we don't always have time. We don't have that time. We don't have that time to notify a defendant or recipient of a citation, where they are in the process. And that's with pretty much any case. You wait for your notice to appear, and that's how you know. But with this online platform, because they're using electronic process, they're using email, they're using their cell phone number, they're constantly updated. So having that information just takes away a lot of the mystery of not knowing what's going on.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we missed Sarah's, our opportunity to hear from
Yes, Sarah's opportunity to talk about parking. Yes, because that is a different process. Can we move back to the previous slide that shows the workflow? Because then she can point out what's different with her process in comparison to parking. Now, Sarah, and I'm going to move to the right so that all of you.
So,
welcome all of Sarah.
Thank you. Parking is essentially the same as traffic. The only difference is we don't involve the officer unless the judge specifically has a question to ask of the parking and code enforcement. And then at that point, we contact them and then just put a comment in for the judge on court innovations to allow them to see what the response was. But same thing, if the ticket's reduced, or even if they're found responsible, we give them 48 hours to pay. Otherwise, it'll just continue its normal process.
So with the parking process, the difference between parking and traffic is that the parking enforcement is not involved as having a direct review. They are solicited, well, maybe solicit is not the right word, but assistance is requested if there is follow-up questions from our judges, and that comes through Sarah. So because this doesn't mimic an informal hearing, these are treated as what we call admissions with explanation. And so the person, the recipient or the user goes in knowing that they're basically admitting to the ticket, but they're offering an explanation in the hopes of having their fines and costs reduced. And it's the same outcome, or they have the same, they have the same option if they don't care for the judge's decision. They too can request a hearing in court. So no due process lost there. They can have their day in court, and the only difference is that it's not an officer reviewing before making that final recommendation.
And we do have one more question, which is, and it may be answered by the people in the room, I don't know. How many staff in your court are monitoring the system?
All of our senior clerks. So the three of you?
Well, I can speak for traffic. I just monitor it through the day, and if I'm not there, the others will.
Okay.
But I just do it myself.
I usually handle warrants and parking.
So we have 5 senior clerks, 5 senior level supervisors in our division, and any one of them can monitor the system, but primarily we have Robert on traffic, Sarah on parking, and then we also have another senior clerk that monitors, well, now she's handling the online misdemeanor pleas. So Sarah's also handling the parking division. And as of recently, and this is just a side, doesn't really impact what our observers are doing there. We merged our divisions, and so our parking and our misdemeanor and our county division are merged, and so some of the responsibility fell to Sarah to pick up some of those duties. And so again, I hope I answered the question. It's 5 senior level supervisors, but we have 3 primarily monitoring the process. And so they cover each other. whenever they're off. And so it's never an issue of a delay because, someone had the day off, called in, or on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually starting to get, if we want to turn to the outcomes, starting to get to some of the speed and information that you guys are able to provide. I know we've got a little bit time left, and I want to make sure we can sing your praises for all that you've accomplished. So we'll typically...
We'll let you.
So, so one of the common things that, online systems are accredited with providing is access. I know it's, the judge has already spoken about how she accesses the system outside of business hours. I think you see the same thing for the public. I don't know, Nicole, would you like me to present these, or are you happy to do these ones?
And I think Judge Larkin alluded to this, that the majority of our population fall within that 18 to 24 range, and you can see just from the slide, I guess 18 to 34 is the highest number within the demographic, and that's just telling of the times. Technology is just very prevalent in our world today, and so the courts are almost forced to go through a re-imaging, rebranding of the services that they're offering. It's no longer the cold stone building, the powdered wig, the robe, or anything like that. We're moving. It's a different era now, and we have to move with it in order to, because the courts are charged with due process, with providing the impartial venue for dispute. Access to justice is very important, and how we do that is with the use of technology. There really is no getting around it. So providing an online platform where it may appear to be more work, that's going to be on the front end. It's going to be in the initial meetings. It's going to be addressing the initial concerns of the stakeholders. But once it's implemented, it runs. It literally runs itself. It does not take us any extra time to do what we do. And Bob and Sarah can, they can say whether or not, because they're handling it day to day. Most of my involvement was on the front end, and so I bore that to make this process come into fruition. But I didn't do that alone. Obviously, I needed the judge's approval, and we needed buy-in from our police departments. And for the police departments, and this is an area where I would advise anyone who's considering the online platform. Time commitment is going to be the question for them. It's going to be the time commitment, because their feeling is that they don't want to have to be stuck to a desk to respond to the number of requests that come in. The number of requests will increase. What we did a study maybe about a year or so ago where we compared the number of in-person informal hearings to the number of online hearings, and they were almost about even. I think, Dunry, you said that there's a slide or something that might speak to that. The reason I believe that is happening is because it's now more accessible to people. It's more accessible, and you're not limited by business hours to have to address your matter. It doesn't matter where you are. I believe when I saw the registration list that most of you are on the west side of the state. So it's 3 hours earlier. You just heard that my judge, she will do this at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, so you're getting responses at all times of the morning just because it's available to you. And that's a great thing. And that's what you want. I mean, you don't want to be sitting on tickets, or you don't want to be sitting on cases and having to issue notices or issuing warrants just because someone doesn't have the time or can't make the time to appear because of their job, because of childcare, whatever the situation may be. It's that 24-hour access is very important, and it was a major reason why we went through it, why we wanted this.
Yeah, and on this particular slide, you can see, to illustrate Nicole's point, this is not the judge when the judge is accessing it. This is when members of the public are accessing it. 60% of people are doing it during the court's business hours, but they're not doing it at the court when they're using ODR, of course. And 40% are doing it in evenings and weekends. So it gives them that location flexibility as well as that around the clock access. And the court can choose to only answer back during business hours, unless you're Judge Larkin.
Right. I think that the 60% of the users during business hours is very telling, because for me, that 60% represent people who are probably working during those business hours, or
Right.
have childcare issues. And so that's, I think that right there, that slide in itself is just confirms, why this process is so beneficial, to the users as opposed to the court.
We've got a couple more slides on outcomes. This one I think is really important. This is from the follow-up surveys. Nicole, I don't know if you want to make a comment on this, or anyone on your team.
So it's interesting to see this 40%, this 46% who's not able to appear in court compared to the 60% that's doing this on a business hour. That just tells you that someone just took the option, and they can. People are choosing to go online because it is available. But to know that there's 46% that are saying that they could not, again, this is just a confirmation for why an online platform should be seriously considered.
Go to the next one. We talked a little bit about efficiencies. Keep going. This is how quickly Bob and Sarah and the judges are moving these cases through. Time from the initial citizen request to decision by the court. Varies a little by offense type, traffic, parking, and warrant, but you guys are pretty fast.
Well, we're fast as far as pushing the case out to the next step, whether it's whether it's a police officer or to the judges, but we're all partners in this. And so if those cases are moving fast, it's because our police departments are just as fast, and our judges want to get those decisions out. There really is, with an online platform, there really isn't a good reason to have to wait a long time.
Yeah.
And speaking to the efficiency for an informal hearing, just to give you some perspective of what this has done for us, we schedule hearings once a month, and those hearings are 4 to 6 weeks out. With an online platform, you can have your matter resolved from start to finish, pretty much within a week. And that includes the 48 hours when the payment is required.
Yeah.
With an in-person, you're waiting six weeks just for the date, just to get the date before you find out whether or not it's the decision, before you find out what the decision. And at that time, if you disagree with the judge's decision, you have to go through an appeal. Whereas it's worth the effort to go through an online process first. So, if you take your chances, if you may, and hope for the better. But if it doesn't work out, you still can decide to take the time to request that hearing and come in 6 weeks later to find out that you might get the same decision. But it's your option.
Yeah.
And we'll take that from you.
Yeah, the right side of this slide shows that the public agrees that they feel that their case was resolved in a timely manner. 90% of them say that 4 days is shorter than 6 weeks.
Yes.
So
yes.
I know we just have a couple moments left, and I want to just speed through the customer satisfaction. People say they understood the status of their case and they would recommend using the system. This has some lovely feedback, but I'm going to keep going just so that we can make sure we ask, keep going. One more questions for this team. And I'm going to pull we just have 5 minutes left, so please drop your questions into the Q&A. We do have one question from Julie Stelzer. I believe the judge may have addressed this, but let's underline this because this is a frequently asked question. Where does the cost of this program go to? The court or the defendants?
Yeah, I was anticipating this question. And it's very valid because the judge said that there is no cost to the user. So what I would say, the cost is absorbed by the court. We'll start there. And how we justify that cost was by taking the number of, actually we could start by taking the cost of the offense that's going to become your plea. And just for the purpose of making round numbers and making the math simple, let's just say we had a $200 ticket. And so that's going to be the plea agreement. So someone who has a speeding ticket, they start the process, they understand that the plea offer is going to be for impeding traffic, which will cost $200. Mm-hmm. You take that and divide that against the cost of the program, and we'll just say for, again, I'll just use a round number. If we just use $1,000, and then you divide that cost by your $200 ticket, it's going to take you about five tickets to pay for the cost of that program. So the benefit definitely outweighs the cost because we've resolved how many cases, Dunry?
You guys are right about 5,000.
Okay, so we again, definitely the benefit outweighs the cost, but it was absorbed by the court. We didn't charge anything against the police departments. The police departments did not have to fund. If you choose to do so, that's something that you are free to negotiate with your departments if you believe that the benefit for those police departments is something that they should pay for. But it wasn't anything that we needed to do because it paid for itself, not only with the tickets or with the cost of the program. It paid for itself with our time. See the use of the staff, the police officers benefit. It's also for our judges. The judges can now have more time to handle the more complex matters. And so that's something that it's not always result in a tangible cost, again, but the value is, beyond measure.
We have one more question. We have a couple more. We commit to answering all of them on email afterwards. We have one about how you promoted this availability of ODR to the community and to your citizens. How do you let people know that this option exists that they can take advantage of? Okay.
We had, and I wish I had it with me. I wish I had thought about that. We issued a press release. Mm-hmm. The press release, we had, it was on our website. We made signs. We had, what was it? No time for the line? No time for the line. I might trademark that because I can't. No time for the line. And so we had a picture of a guy running, like he was in a rush, someone who was in a rush. And our caption was, no time for the line, try online resolution. And we had the website address. And so those were posted all around our building. We share a building, our office is shared with the court shares a building with City Hall. And so those were posted at every entryway. It was on our website, and we also had a press release. And wherever that, we had that sign, we had the same symbol on our website at the time so that people knew exactly where to go to when they hit our website. The Sarah's idea of the smartphone, that came later, but we had this cute not rushing, but we had this cute who was rushing, and there was a no time for the line caption, and that's how we promoted. And it didn't take very long for it to catch on the phone.
Do you do outreach with
on the phone? Oh. And we also, and so during our phone calls, so our phone interactions with customers, we would promote it that way as well at the counter. Or if someone wanted to request an informal hearing, we would give them the option to get it resolved online.
Does law enforcement spread the word? I know sometimes they'll do like a little business card.
Yes. Yes, and we also have our website that's actually printed on the citations.
Yes.
So they can easily go to our website just based on the information on the citation. But yes, our officers were also notifying people that it could be resolved online or to check, because not every case was eligible. So that was, also very important. And it was the police department that determines, it's their tickets. And so they were the ones to determine what type of cases they wanted to see. And the citations that were eligible, primarily, what is it, Robert?
Oh, all moving violations, 3 points or less, and no accident.
Okay.
No accident.
Here in Michigan, we use a point system. And so it was moving violations, 3 points or less, and nothing with an accident. We didn't want anything that could have property damage or victim involved, and have it resolved online without, the police officer or the other party having an opportunity to weigh in.
So we're going to have to end it there. Thank you. I know it's been a very fast hour. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Sarah. And big thanks to Judge Larkin as well. It's been really fun to do this with you, to have this conversation. To have you answer the questions of our attendees. We commit, Nicole has made her contact information available. You can certainly always ask us any questions you have, any questions that were asked or and unanswered during the time. We'll get back to you on email. Thank you again. We look forward to connecting with you again on another webinar. Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. I hope the information that we provided was beneficial. My email address is available. Feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you.
Wonderful. Bye, Robert. Bye, Sarah.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.